Jack Ebling here with Lindsay Huddleston. We are at Breslin Center, another Michigan State Madness. And now we see Tom Izzo as the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, he was 7 foot tall. He was happy about that too, right?
It's the first time he could ever look down at Marcus Bingham.
First time only. He said he wants Marcus' body to look like that next summer, so we got to get in the weight room.
A lot of work ahead for that to happen.
Right.
But we got to look at the Michigan State basketball team, women's team as well.
Correct.
And a lot of impressive signs now. It looks like Mark Rocket Watts is in position. He could be the big beneficiary in terms of playing time, and looks like he might be a starter until Josh is back.
Right. When you look at this Michigan State Madness, compare this to past years and what you see, can you put a lot of stock into it, or is it just a theatrical event, or could it really tell us something about the season?
I think it's more of a theatrical event. It's
Sure.
more of a show.
Sure.
It's more of a way to thank the crowd, and they did raise the Final Four banner. It's the 10th time and the 8th in the Izzo era.
It's a big deal.
That they've had that, so that's something that very, very, very few programs can touch. And we got to look at all the players. So many pieces out here, even without Josh Langford.
Right.
Tom Izzo's going to have a lot of fun substituting.
Right. He used to make the comment before, the team is not going to hold him hostage, meaning being limited to how far they can go with depth.
Yeah.
But they still have the depth now and the experience, so that helps them.
I think it's going to be a big help, and I think early on in the season, there's going to be a transition period, guys trying to figure out their roles, exactly who's going to do what. But when you've got three pieces like Cassius Winston, Xavier Tillman, and Aaron Henry, and you're filling in around those guys, that's a pretty good start.
Right, and then you got that backup core with the guys like Thomas Kithier, Gabe Brown. You know, the future of what these guys are doing is great. So a lot of great things can happen with that.
Yeah, and I think that they don't have to have the same lineup for every game.
Mm-hmm.
They can look at it situationally and say, okay, we've got a lot of bigs in this game. We're going to go bigger.
Right.
Or we're going to go smaller and make them guard us. So a lot of different ways for Tom to go.
Right. No, that's a good thing, and it's exciting. It's sad that you hear about Josh's injury right now, but it seems that he's consoling more people than he's being consoled. So he's kind of lifting up the Spartan Nation, and maybe that can kind of be the tide that rises all ships and helps him go forward.
Yeah, he looked good tonight. He looked happy, smiling, at peace. He's always at peace.
Yes, he is. I had a chance to talk with his dad, Tellus, who's in town with his parents, and they're the bedrock of his foundation. They keep him strong. They keep pushing him forward. And I think also with Tum Nairn being back in the fold, another spiritual advisor, spiritual mentor, that's going to really help them stay solid with that going forward.
And we had some former players back tonight.
Sure did.
Brandon Dawson, after the scrimmage, said, wow, a lot of pieces here. I think he wanted to come back and play again.
Yeah, I bet he will want to get back with this team.
And we got football tomorrow. Tom Izzo said didn't mind if the fans left a little early. Didn't have to stick around for the scrimmages as long as they got to Spartan Stadium on time and brought their vocal cords.
Yeah, it says a lot about the program. He's not being singular. It's not all about me and my basketball program. It's about, you know, the programs here at Michigan State. And that was evident with him encouraging people to go out to see this, you know, top-ranked Penn State team come into town tomorrow.
I saw Lorenzo White back here again, came up and really supporting this program before he goes into the College Football Hall of Fame on November 10th in New York City. But what do you make of Michigan State responding to the challenge with the bye week psychologically? What do the Spartans need to do?
It's a great question, Jack. You would hope that they could get their mojo back by kind of getting back to the basics. If they got back in that process of saying, who are we? Let's not be identified by what people say about us. Let's identify ourselves and get back to that core and not be so excited just to go out and prove something, but to go back and get to the basics and do all the small things. Because we saw in those past 2 or 3 games, they weren't making blocks. They weren't doing all the things that good football players are supposed to do. So the hope is that they'll get back to the basics, and they had the time off. So we'll see really soon when Penn State comes in tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think for a team that had beaten itself a lot this year, it had costly mistakes, lining up in the wrong place, misuse of timeouts, lots of those kinds of things. We really haven't seen Michigan State play a clean game other than Western Michigan.
That's right. And you often talk about those penalties that raise their head too, and that's really a sign of them not being locked in. So the hope is that this time off will help them clean up their game, get refocused, get recentered, and be ready for a great Penn State team.
The other thing about this, Lindsay, is Penn State played a very tough game at Iowa 2 weeks ago. Last week, another night game, had that going with Michigan and escaped. Could have lost that game.
Right.
So does Penn State have enough fuel in the tank to do that for a third straight week? And a lot of people interested in the weather. Remember what happened here 2 years ago in that 7-hour game?
Exactly.
And how would wet conditions affect these two teams? You'd think the team that could run the ball better would have an advantage. I'm not sure that's a strength of either team.
I would only say that based on where we are in the season, teams have had enough time to get into who they are, get all the jitters out, and I don't think weather may not necessarily be the issue this time. I think these guys are just ready to battle and ready to go.
Well, we know the number one player on the field is going to be wearing number one for Penn State.
Right.
KJ Hamler from Orchard Lake St. Mary's, originally committed to Michigan State, but wanted to come back, wanted to have a great game against Michigan, and did. Wants to have a great game against Michigan State.
Right.
We'll see how that works, but you don't know with a wet field. Sometimes that's an advantage for an elite receiver because they know where they're going.
Right.
The defensive backs don't, as long as you can get a dry ball.
Right, exactly. Well, unless it's Coach Belichick out there wetting the balls in practice to get them ready, you can only hope that they can be ready to respond to whatever conditions that are out there, which is what college football is.
And for Michigan State, not only is this a critical game being the biggest home game of the year, it's also a game that could really tell what's going to happen over the last 5 games of the season. We're just a little more than halfway through this year, but Michigan State still has to play Illinois at home, Maryland at home, has a trip to Rutgers. So if Michigan State could get a win here and win those other 3 I mentioned, now you're looking at a team that's 8-3, and whatever would happen in that Michigan game where Michigan State's won 4 of the last 5 in Ann Arbor, if it could pull that off again, now suddenly you're looking at a 9-3 season, and people would say, well, that's not so bad.
No, not so bad at all. You're right. There's a great opportunity to salvage a season that many think may be going on a negative downward trend. But it's one game at a time, one play at a time, inch by inch, yard by yard, and you can hope they have that mentality coming off this bye to get that what you're predicting.
Yeah, Tara Stafford, who is a regular viewer to these podcasts, we were talking earlier today about Felton Davis, the third, who is back here and is going to be the honorary captain.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, Mark D'Antonio cannot slip him into jersey number 11 or 15 or 27 or any of the players in the portal.
Right.
So we won't be able to have him, but it was his catch last year that beat Penn State in Happy Valley.
Right. Well, you want to leverage anything you can, whether it's superstition, whether it's getting people feeling the right way. But as a coach in this situation right now, you kind of got to reach and grasp and see whatever you can get to motivate people, get them locked in, and kind of inspire them when you got a big game like this.
Yeah, this is a big game, but the first of 3 big games in the state this weekend. We just had a couple of weeks where none of these teams were home.
Right.
Michigan State home at 3:30. Then Michigan home against Notre Dame in a game that's kind of a pick'em, could go either way.
Sure.
And then the Lions at home Sunday against Pat Shurmur's New York Giants with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley.
Wow.
And see if the Lions can snap that 3-game losing streak.
Right, that's going to be important. It's going to be a lot of great things to watch. But speaking of watching things, what's coming up on Press Pass?
Well, we're coming on with Tom Crawford, Rico Beard, Matt Charbonneau. Doug Warren will do a Lions segment. The thing is, we don't know what time we're coming on Sunday night because the baseball game, there will be a Game 5 of the World Series now. So that means that's going to go late. And set your DVRs. You can also watch it online on Monday. We may not come on until 1:30. We don't know.
That's okay, but when it comes on, it's going to be a great show as usual, and that's going to be a great thing.
We will be back with you again tomorrow after the game at Spartan Stadium with another Press Pass preview, and we'll see you Sunday night at some time. For Lindsay Huddleston, Jack Ebling saying, have a great weekend, everyone.
Take care.